When's the last time you saw this thing? Range Rover Dakar prototype. Dakar. Is that how you guys say it? I know you'd like to correct me. Is it Dakar? Is that it? Okay, cool. I don't even want to try to say Velar, because that's probably really off too. And I wish I could use that accent, but that's just not for me, and I don't have that skill set right now. Maybe over the next amount of months of finishing this, I'll come out of this with a Dakar. We're done. Hijacked the Range Rover episode to talk about prototype aprons. I have this tan thing that shows that it's dirty within 1 week of wearing it, but it also feels good and it's kind of cool. I feel so fucking gay. And then I have a black one. I want to put interest into these aprons. Just our merch in general. I think we need to drop some specialty merch to the tune of the cars. I've talked about it forever, and I think it's finally time to do it. It's also probably going to be really beneficial for us to help the shop keep getting set up. But anyways, here's the Range Rover. SEMA 2024 was the last place you saw this. I don't really think we got much of an update episode on that anyways. I think it was really just, it's here, look at it, neat. I'd probably have to go back and I'd redact that, but I really don't think we got to be thorough and talk about everything that's been completed. From that point on, this car has gone to PRI in Indianapolis in December. It was with Tycon Industries. They are a partner with us on a lot of the builds, but especially on this one, especially on the titanium exhaust. Goes to PRI, comes back, little stagnant for, let's call it 6 weeks. Colin starts taking this thing under. I'm working on other stuff, and then he's back grinding as much stuff out as he can on this thing. There's a lot. We'll cover it as we go. I'm not going to run a cut list on this thing. I'm just going to kind of go and show you. I want to start with the tin work, and I think what we'll do is we're going to mesh into talking about the suspension, the brake lines. We'll talk about the exhaust, and then we'll end with the pedal box, the sliders, and some of the plumbing that's done. Let's think about this. So when this thing went to Sand Sport Show, I used the trade shows and the events as like milestone checkpoints. I do not believe in just bringing stuff fully powder coated and upholstered and finaled. There is so much more to the story bringing cars in raw construction and in different phases of construction. I will always be with my team on that. We will always bring cars to shows that will be in a form where you can really understand the layers. If we brought this dressed with a big carbon body kit on it and painted and upholstered and powder coated, it would be amazing. But there's just so much more of a process to see here, and that's how you really express the amount of work that's been put into the car. What I need to do is go under here and show you some things. It rolls so easy. All right, well, we'll have Joey shoot some B-roll here. So I think you can kind of see what's going on here. This is all, you know, when we went to the Sand Sports show, we had just the upper arm on here, which is all 70-75 billet aluminum construction. Same with the lower, same with the tie rod, same with the upright. There's A lot of styling that we put into this that all flows together. And it's the same with the tin work. If you really start to put stuff together, everything should flow the same. The shock mounts, the tin work, the front suspension, the rear trailing arms that are not on here will also be billet. They're starting from a 40-inch by 8-inch by 20-inch piece of aluminum. But you know, this is all stuff that we drew by hand. We went through quite a process of, you know, design process, figuring out shapes we liked and narrowing them down, starting with close to 24 pages of sketches, preliminary concept sketches. And the preliminary concept sketches, then they get a elimination where, say there's let's just narrow it down. Say there's 4 sheets of sketches, and you know there's rows. So you know each sheet might have 4 rows that are 4x4. So you know you start picking stuff, and you say I like C4, and I also like the knuckle part of A2, and I highlight those, and we pick, you know, several of these concepts we like, and then I make new drawings, which capture the design elements we liked in the previous set of images, and we start narrowing that down as a design process to get what we think is the optimal looking part. So that's what we've been through. It's hundreds of hours of design, and then it's also hundreds of hours of surfacing in the computer on top of the machine time. And you know what you get is a result that's unmatched by anything else. Stuff that we've integrated by hand on here are the bump jack pads, which are chromoly. I think I'm getting them. You can see that's just like a shaped piece in here. It's all chromoly, you know, with a welded blended seam, and then that's all countersunk and drilled and tapped into the arm. This was all stuff we did after we had the arms. You know, we integrated this into the rear trailing arm now, but for the instance in the front, we added that stuff. The same with the limit straps. These are items that needed to be steel construction. Hard to see in here, but I hope you can get the point. And then into the chassis up here is that boss where we're going to have a clevis for the limit straps. I hope you can see that stuff. And as you can see, like all the tin work, the thing that takes a lot of time with the tin work when you're doing an enclosure panel like this is making sure everything cycles first and getting the right template to know that everything's going to work when you build out the real pieces in aluminum. So same with the arms and the steering and the rack. Everything that you have to build out a template that's rigid enough to tell the story of these components all working. And then you need to translate that into the aluminum. And then when you start to bevel this stuff and add the dimension and the shape, you do need to cycle it again just to make sure everything's okay. But what you get here is you get these pockets, these 3-dimensional pockets that express the movement of the suspension, and they also do their purpose as the enclosure panels. Something else to note while we're here is the brake lines. On the bottom side of the upper arm here, you can see the bulkheads for all the brake line routing. And that's a pretty daunting thing to watch, you know, as Colin is drilling and tapping into the upper arms on the table. I think there's some good views here, and I'll definitely have Joey shoot some B-roll. But you can see there's a real presence of symmetry and design here in this thing. And that's all by design. I think the radiator we covered, that was Igor's design from Triton Race Coolers. We gave him a pretty much a 3-dimensional brick of sheet metal with clecos, and then he took that and constructed what we needed to in those dimensions. We broke it all down. We sent it to Utah. He put it back together, took the measurements he needed, and then he built a 4-core radiator for the front of this thing. And I think we did cover that at the Sand Sports show, so excuse me. Let's go ahead and move into the rear exhaust. know we have this stuff at SEMA. I don't remember if I walked and talked, but this is all titanium. This is the wastegates. These are 68 millimeter turbos, precision turbos. Matching wastegates, mirror image. And then 4-inch titanium exhaust. This is all what's recommended for power output for this thing. The estimation here is 2,000 at the wheels. So we're preparing for that. Colin's gotten through. He did an amazing job on the headers. I kind of coached him through, but you know, it really was free reign for him. It was more or less come up with something cool, make sure it makes sense for where this needs to fit, make sure the stuff comes off, and then present that to me, and let's go from there. And right when he presented the first grouping of headers, it was definitely a win right off the bat. So all the headers we put some color into, but they're 316 stainless. You know, and this was our first time doing titanium. So again, Colin fabricated all this. He welded it all. I colored it all. One thing that's missing out of the back of this right now is a Boost Logic billet intake manifold. You know, the Lamborghini, especially the Huracan motor or the V10, infamous for the plastic. The key focal point that you see is that the plastic intake manifold that says Lamborghini with the kind of the black crinkle finish, and they are just notorious for failing. So now this is on a DI delete with a billet intake manifold. What we wanted to do is to still retain Lamborghini styling off of it. So they're making a custom set of covers for that thing that's going to be machined with the Lamborghini branding in them. So, you know, it's one thing if you have a Lamborghini and you put a billet intake on it because someone comes up to the car, they already know that it's a Lamborghini. What's so potent about this car is when you open the back hatch, you see the Lamborghini engine. So if you take the intake manifold off and then you put just a billet intake manifold, you don't know what the fuck you have. And it just looks like a cool engine with a cool billet intake manifold. So it still needs to represent Lamborghini, or else we're going to lose the essence of why this thing is so amazing in the first place. So this is a partition. This is a heat partition for the tire. And you can see where the spare goes in here. And I know it's a little dark, and I hope maybe some of the B-roll is better. Dry sump tank is in here. And it's turning, what this is turning into is a very crazy packaging architectural thing in here. It's everything has a home, but the real estate is going away quickly. Another detail to look at here is sway bar integration. At first, Ryan and I talked about not having a sway bar, and it just doesn't make sense for the speeds that this car is going to do and the performance that we're expecting out of it. Has to have a rear sway bar. So we got a win with the placement of it. We factored in where it was originally on the trailing arm here. I don't know if you can see the bracket in there. It just seems dark when I look through the camera. But you can see where the splined end of the sway bar arm is coming through the tin work. And what I do is I have the other side bare, where we don't have the tin work on there. So you'll be able to see what that looks like mounting all the way through. And there's only a few places you can actually fit that thing inside, especially where the powertrain and the drivetrain are. So you can see our sway bar mount. Same type of fabrication, like a structural sculpted part going in there. Big heavy duty 1.25 inch sway bar. Something else to look at. Come up here. So obviously the tin work that's in here, that's also stuff we added. All of this is unfinished, where that's going to wrap around, and the moonroof still is retained. The moonroof only goes to this section where the partition is here, and that's just a glue-in piece, so that's not going to pop up and move. It's just going to be a skylight, if you will, through the occupant area. What happens after that is a waterfall effect, and then this is a condenser with its own fan and shroud. Usually with a air conditioning or HVAC condenser, you need to have air being pulled through, and a lot of people use their radiator fan to, they put the condenser in front of the radiator and then it pulls the air through, and they're getting a 2-for-1. We are completely out of space in the front, and it's also a lot closer to the engine to just run the condenser back here, and we had a perfect opportunity. So it looks like another cooler, but it's really just for the AC. It's extra large. There's 2 big brushless Spall fans in there. And then what we'll do is we'll come through with tin work, And we'll cover all this factory area, and we'll just make really nice ducting and a protective mesh, just like everything else. If you can see down there, same deal with the mesh, or a lot of places on the car. But a protective mesh that lets it vent and cleans this whole area up. There won't be any positive shapes coming off the roof line. It's just too clean. We built a roof scoop, and there's so much taper going on with the, when the belt line to the roof, it just tapers super heavy. And when we added this roof scoop, it was too much. It just started to give too many arches, and it took away from the streamlined essence this car has. So really what you're gonna have when you get up here is just clean tin work, where air is just gonna water flow down and go into the condensers, pull out, and we're just gonna have a massive extraction program coming out by the exhaust. Something we wanted to press on was a pedal box. I talked from the start about a pedal box, no hanging pedals. This is a 3-pedal car, so it's a manual with a clutch. Always wanted to have something special there. Ryan asked if we could put this on a slider. So essentially what we have here and what we'll dive into is a adjustable pedal box with a false floor. The false floor is not in right now, and then we're also on an adjustable seat slider. So they're both running linear actuators. What they'll do is they'll be tuned in line. So when you go through here, you have to think, I think as Linger Racing says, Factory Premium Plus. This whole thing should be Range Rover. When you get in this thing, all you will notice that's different is just the chassis work that's kind of showing through. Your seats will be a little different. You'll be putting a harness on instead of a traditional 3-point seatbelt. But really all the buttons, all the telemetry, the GPS, the climate control, all that stuff will be reminiscent of a Range Rover. There will not be any aftermarket BS like Motec pads or displays or anything. It's all going to be integrated into the factory Range Rover wiring. It's definitely going to have some Motec behind it doing all the work, but it's going to be interfaced in a way where you get in here and it just feels like you're in the most insane Range Rover that Range Rover could have built. With that being said, your seat settings, a lot of cars just have 1 or 2. This has 3 different seat settings. So when you do that, what's going to happen is you'll buckle up, you'll close your door, you'll press your seat setting, and your pedals and your seat will adjust to whatever driver number you are. So a different person will go in here. Why I say you'll buckle up is because you'll scoot the seat back. That'll be its default setting. You'll put the harnesses on, and then when this seat scoots forward, it'll actually tighten the harnesses for you. Now, I'm sure there's something missing here where maybe that's not as streamlined, but at least my expectation right off the bat is going to be that. I think that's a reasonable goal, and I want to set to do that. If anything, if you needed to adjust that seat manually, that's a nice thing. You scoot the seat back, you really tighten your harnesses, and then you scoot it forward, and it gives you this extra pull of security that's really nice. Some cars, I think there's a lot of cars now, when you start driving in a spirited way, you'll feel the belt cinch up on you, so we're going to do that before you even start driving. But really what I want to look at here is this. This is a all chromoly stainless rod sliding pedal box with a 12-volt electric brake system on here. This electric brake system is probably one of the most profound systems we've put in an off-road car, and they are amazing. I'm done with hydro boost stuff. I'm done with manual brakes. These 12-volt electric brake systems, they have their own accumulator. They are just running off the wiring. They don't run off your power steering like a hydro boost, and they are insanely tunable, and the pressure is incredible with them. So tilt and pedals, and then all of this we built in-house. Colin has plumbed this whole thing. It's pretty incredible. All the soft lines are on bulkheads, so when this thing does slide, it all works. And then we've started the hard line going up to the brakes and to the masters. We've also started hard line going to the rear brakes. Again, it looks dark when I'm filming this, so I hope it's brighter. But there's a lot of stuff that's been going on in this thing. That's just a ton of detail work. Something I'd like to clock into here is also the shifter. It feels so good. So what we've done, a lot of client cars, we have the clients come out and we fit them. That means that we get them in the car and we set the seat up exactly where they feel comfortable. We set the steering wheel angle up and the depth of the steering wheel and everything exactly where they want it. So really it's like a tailored suit. This is their vehicle, it's their project, it's their investment. So it should be something where they get in here and they feel like it's built for them and it fits them like their own glove. And that's what we have for Ryan. So, you know, he wanted a little bit of I did a preliminary run on getting this where I thought it should be. And then he came in and kind of revised it. He wanted a little bit more height in the seat. The pedals were good. You can kind of see where we're down here. Everything feels pretty good. I just, you know, I'm a little bit taller, but this is a really great feeling. Now, what I want to talk about is this thing. This is one of my most exciting things. This is the 5-speed shifter. Colin's got it pretty much mocked up in here, and it's just floating. What we'll end up doing, you can see where that knob, this was like the transmission selection knob, the gear selection knob. So we'll take this plate that's here, this flimsy guy that's taped in, and this is just the reference point to center the shifter in. And then what we'll do is we're going to have a machined plate here that's gated. And it's going to also have like a mechanism under it that's going to make this thing click like a old Murcielago or an old Ferrari with a gated shifter. So this is your 5-speed. The driving experience here, that's the whole thing with this car. It's an extreme performance car, but it's not track time performance. It is an overall experience, extreme experience. 2,000 wheel horsepower, manual shifted, rowing through gears, clutch. Like, this whole thing should be this immersive experience of an off-road car. I think it's going to be the most insane off-road car ever built, and I know I'm biased, but I don't do that to myself. I really believe in this thing. Something else to think about with these paddles, right? So, you know what? Let's cover the airbag thing. Did anybody ever say anything about the blown out airbag? The blown out airbag is something I don't care about because I know it's going here. I don't care about bringing it to shows like this because I'm bringing an unfinished car. Doesn't matter. What's going to go here? You have to think for line of sight. So what you'll have here is you're going to have a molded, upholstered piece that's 3D printed. It'll get upholstered after it's printed, and then there's got 2 billet inserts with a C130 Motec display. The Motec display is not going to be, like we talked about, showing telemetry. It's designated just for a wheelie camera. So when you think about this, and I hope this gives you a good baseline, if I'm driving like this and the front comes up, then like the physics of my head already, even if the car is going up, I'm still looking down. So if we're doing that, then I'm going to be looking primarily right at the steering wheel. It's going to come up, I'm just going to adjust my head. What's going to be at the steering wheel is going to be a forward-facing camera located at the right angle, so when the car comes up in a wheelie form and the front is off the ground, the camera is going to be the direct line of sight that you're going to be staring at through the center of the steering wheel. So this whole portion of real estate on the steering wheel is going to be just a designated wheelie camera. If you wanted to toggle through and have something there besides that, while you're just driving normal, cool. You can always have something there. The paddle shifters. These are just electric paddle shifters. They're not air or anything crazy. Just your typical OEM thing. That is actually going to act as the turning brakes. This is an independent rear suspension car. A lot of sand rails, dune cars, they have a push-pull lever that's pretty much located near the shifter. And when you push it, or when you pull it, it locks up one tire in the rear or the other tire. And what that does is it gives you a really dynamic handling experience where it's a cutting brake. So essentially, if you're turning left and you grab it and you lock up the inside tire, it whips the car around, and it accelerates the radius and the urgency of the turning. So what we'll do is we'll have a solenoid. This will be for the right, this will be for the left, and when you hit this, you can tap it, and it's gonna chomp the brake lines and chomp the caliper. So what I mean by that is it's gonna pressurize them immediately, and it's gonna be just like a cutting brake, except it'll be all electronic on solenoids. And these things will be super heavy duty, high performance, and just fast. So it's at a good point. We've just been going through this move. We've been going through tons of life. Colin's been handling everything he can, while some of this stuff, the tin work up here is missing. This upper console is going to be retained. We remounted it. But, even that, I hope I'm getting the shots. All this needs tin. So what I've been doing right now is I've been catching up on our wheelies project. And I believe the wheelies is going to be the next thing we intro. But we have a very special wheelies wagon that we're working on. And I've been getting that exactly to where it needs to be, so then the guys can go ahead and build a chassis into it. But I have to do an immense amount of body work. Once the body work's done, I'm gonna jump right back onto the Range Rover. All right, what's next for this thing? So, finished a lot of the plumbing. There's a large cross member on the back that's not there right now that needs to, hold the engine as a motor plate, a front motor plate, but since the motor's backwards, it's a rear motor plate, I guess. That also houses some accessories that are crucial for plumbing, such as the power steering pump, the oil pump. We are gonna stress doing as many hard lines as we can in this thing. So with that being said, until that billet cross member's in there, we're at a bit of a standstill with how far we can get the plumbing. Corresponding with that, oh, these are cool too. See all the plumbing here? This is all for the brakes. But again, this style hardline, this is what you're gonna see throughout the car. It's just gonna trickle in more and more and more. And we're gonna avoid having any kind of soft line except where it needs to transition somewhere or into a moving part that swings. Tin work. We're gonna take more of a dive into tin work. Let's talk about the back while we're here. I'll bring this light. We want to enclose this thing just like the side panels are on it, where you'd call that a full enclosure panel. All of this area we're going to enclose. We're going to leave details and three-dimensional breakups, just like when we went through the front tin work earlier, where there's those dimensional bevels that come in where the suspension is exposed and swinging. Same kind of stuff. I'm going to dive all this into where the turbo work is, and I'm going to get a lot of the focal points into a three-dimensional part of the panel while still protecting and enclosing the whole engine compartment. Other areas of that we will cut mesh and extraction in, because one of the huge things about running so much powertrain back here with the exhaust, the headers, the turbos, the engine, is getting all of this air out of the car. It's gonna overheat itself, just like I don't think that's the right word. I think it's gonna heat soak. And so it's just getting it all out. So whatever we end up doing, extraction everywhere. But really the primary goal and the vision here is when you open this thing up, you see just the key focal points. You see the Lamborghini intake covers, and you see the turbos, you see hints of hardline popping through, you see the wastegate plumbing cutting through, all while it's cleaned up and dressed in tin work. As far as this goes, I'm gonna leave this as it is. When we check back on this thing, we'll put the floor in, but essentially what happens here, so you can see there's quite a bit of a floor cavity there, and then you can see there's an elevation to where the actual floor is going to be. And what happens is there's There's a floor that's floating here, and then there's a pedal pad where your feet will go on that slides with the pedals, and it just floats over the floor. So we've spaced it enough to put carpet in there, and then this pedal pad will probably just be like a nice grip surface with a coating on it, and that's just going to slide, and it's not going to expose any of the inner workings of that. So you really have this false floor under here, and it just makes it more, your seating position turns more into a high performance car or a supercar, because you're more favoring like the bent knee versus like school bus truck driver where you're all 90'd out with your knees. The progress on the Range Rover and on the Willys is really going to be the most exciting stuff over this next year, especially. When do we expect this to be done? Definitely within a year. What are some of the biggest hurdles? Most of the big work's done. The largest thing that I need to tackle is we are going to clay sculpt this whole body by hand, 1-to-1. You've seen like on the Frontier and on the Bronco, some of the clay sculpting. Mario's came in here and he's, just done a fender. So when I went to Art Center, if you guys don't know, I went to Art Center College of Design for transportation design. I dropped out. I got my feet wet in clay sculpting, but it was only in quarter scale, fifth scale models. This is a bigger monster, but it's the same thing. And really, we can do the route of scan it, render it in the computer, put it in a CNC, mill it all out, but we're gonna lose that connection of something special here where the spirit of this car is completely hand-built. And the greatest win you can have here is to completely hand sculpt the entire body. When I say the body, I guess it could be the body work, because it's really gonna be the quarters, the bedsides, the rear valence, the front fenders, the front valence, and the hood. What we're gonna do with that is I will run through this whole process, whether it's a Fab Diaries or it's updates, it will completely get covered. For myself, Ryan giving me that option is a huge chapter for my career. What I would do to clay sculpt a car. I'm so grateful to be able to do that. So we're gearing up for that. It's gonna be a thing where the car's down. So we need to get as much work as we can get done in the allotted amount of time before this thing gets slammed with foam and clay and it can't open and it can't move, because it will be stuck there until we pop molds off the clay. The molds, the clay is gonna be used as a plug. Then we'll have guys come in, do the molds, put returns on everything, make it streamlined. So it's gonna be a process. But what it's gonna render and what it's gonna look like is from the B-pillar line outward will be this big, beautiful fender. The door will still be functioning. We'll have to make the cut appropriate. That'll come out, essentially a wide body. It'll draw back in. It'll have venting in it. It'll have front venting into the shocks. There'll be a valance that swoops and covers right up to the bumper. He almost fell. Same with the fenders. The fenders draw from right at this trim piece on the door. The upper part of the fender above the body line comes out and it starts to smoothly draw into here, and then it'll just lay back into the corner lamp here. So all of this is going to be an exercise, but the thing is, in order for us to use the sculpted parts as plugs, both sides need to be done. We're not just going to collect scan data and then flip it. So what I'm going to have to do is get one whole side done, get half of the hood done, do like a mohawk divider through here, shape this whole thing, and then take a series of templates and start running a grid off of this thing to transfer onto the other side. All of that while figuring out how to have these tires up in here for compression and lock to lock, and then putting them back down to get the proportions right, setting the right height at the right spot. It's a little low right now. That's the big endeavor for me. As far as everything else, then it's just meat and potatoes, wiring. Our wiring's getting done in Australia. So we will have Ryan fly over here. We'll send the harness to him. He's got all the, schematics. There we go. Man, I gotta think sometimes. I just don't always have them. He's got all the schematics for Range Rover and he's familiar with doing this. So wiring's pretty much handled. He'll take care of that. And then it's really just once we figure out how to get all that clay processed into plugs and molds, then it turns into carbon fiber. carbon body panels go on. We do the final tin work to close in the voids in the carbon fiber into the tin work that we have. And then we're pretty much ready to strip this thing down. I don't know if this is going to be one of those ones that we want to have all of it turnkey running before it gets a coating. There's a lot of stuff, especially with the engine, that we're pioneering with off-road. It might deserve to be tested in a raw form. It's more expensive to do it like that because you end up having to get a car completely running and wiring harness and everything in there and plumbing, and then you have to take everything apart and you have to strip it, you got to powder coat it, and you have to upholster it and coat it and fresh hardware again and the whole thing. So we'll approach that angle when we get there, but really right now this is just a catch-up update. I'm sure I missed stuff. The next time I'll tackle that. There'll be more done next time, and we'll go through it. So I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, if anything stuck out that you're like, hey, I need to learn more about that, or I watched the other update, I didn't see that, what is that? Let me know. We will absolutely read, take notes, and address whatever you guys have to help you out and to share.